potent defense and a powerful statement, made in countless intervals of hammering, brutal fire. Hi, Six Snipes here, back with another thrilling episode of the series regarding everyone's favorite machine guns, reminding you that there's like barely a season's worth of these things. Today, working our way up in price, we've graduated from half-decent Israeli rifle to full metal Slav grinder. Taking a look at the PKM, you're watching Gun Guy. The PK machine gun, or else in Russian known as
Pulemyot Kalashnikova,
roughly translates entitled to a very creative moniker of Kalashnikov's machine gun, which would be like if a Western designer like Browning put his name in literally all of his guns. Oh wait, he did. One of the later works of the great Russian designer, accredited with many other achievements, least of which being surviving the occupation of the death trap that was the average T-34 tank during the defense of the motherland. Now, many of the less initiated would venture to tell you that this more or less boils down to an AK with a belt, wherein in reality, from my understanding, the PK is by far more mechanically similar to the SVD, with any shared features of the AK actually being upside down relative to the trigger, and instead of a little bitch 7.62x389, takes a fucking sniper round that's otherwise found in the Mosin. The specific model in Sandstorm with the M tacked on at the end was meant to be a modernized rendition in 1969, 8 years after initial conception, and it is in every sense to the PK what the AKM is to the AK-47. Lighter, simpler, easier to produce, and taking advantage of the new technology of stamped as opposed to milled receivers. Read, this gun is older than your dad and is still in production in Russia today, so that gives you the idea of when I say that this is pretty much the gold standard for what a machine gun do, you better believe it. And there's a lot of fans of the design and fanboys of Kalashnikov and femboys who glorify this shit endlessly and ruin your entire experience in the modding communities and games such as Source and Fallout 4 to the point where you basically feel like you have no choice other than to recreate the character arc of Michael Douglas's role in Joe Schumacher's classic 1993 movie Falling Down. Basically, there's a lot of people who are gonna be mad when I say that this weapon is sort of balls. Like, I like machine guns and I like the PK series, but the reality is Insurgency's PKM is the sum total embodiment of everything wrong with machine guns in Sandstorm and gaming as a whole. So I am now going to explain why this weapon works, but in reality is easily outclassed by virtually any other gunner pick equal to and above it in cost.
It's not true. That's impossible.
Number 1. It's a machine gun. Yes, you have a lot of bullets, and yes, it shoots really hard, but there are glaring flaws with their performance that more or less equate to directly intentional action on the part of the devs all the way back in the beta. Not that I would have been around the community back then, but evidently a more realistic scenario of the gunner class was in effect wherein the weapons, like in real life, didn't have functionally different recoil from a regular rifle, and were just way heavier. But because of this, everyone and their mom is obviously going with the gunner when a given choice between 37.62 and 100 near anti-material anti-grade rounds is given to them with no penalty to recoil. Whereas the reality is not everyone runs around on the battlefield with a machine gun in real life, due to a number of reasons, none of which translate to video games. Tangible weight of both the gun and the extra ammunition for one. Much more complicated assemblies and the need to troubleshoot on the fly being another big one, but you don't feel the weight on your back, and taking apart guns is for Tarkov versions, so really in-game like Insurgency, machine guns will always be overpowered if portrayed with any realism, so the devs nearly always counter with the obvious fix of obligatory recoil tweak. And because of this, the PKM and all the other belt feds will suffer drastically when introduced to the environments known as shooting from the standing position, and is often reduced to a role of holding angles set up in a window away from the action, or else covering a street all the way in the last camp of your team on push while prone. And while it excels there, you will not have the same luck actually trying to keep up with your team as a slow ass with a gun that has you looking at the ceiling within the first 4 bullets.
Hey yo, dead ass G, my bad pimp. That's just what happened when you a motherfucking real ass boss, real motherfucking player, G. The shorties just love it.
It also, like the other machine guns, has a trigger delay. This means that the time you click does not equate to the time that the gun shoots by a margin that's not noticeable when it doesn't matter, but if you come face to face with a guy with an actual breaching weapon and your gun literally starts to shoot slower, you're gonna notice. Not even to mention the other crippling deficiencies typical of an MG, like the clunky ass barrel length being just the worst in CQB, or else the reload speed which just got you hiding in the corner loading slower than your average 2016 Nerf Mega Mastodon. Number 2, the accuracy. Unlike the other machine guns, I genuinely believe that the raw accuracy of the PKM is just not it. Maybe it's the recoil, but there were a lot of instances where the bullets just didn't hit where it seemed like they should go, where the reticle was. Perhaps just the poor ballistics on the preset round it's chambered in, but either way, I have observed a significant amount of precision/accuracy, or lack thereof, with this gun that just is very clearly not there with the others, even after continuous fire. Number 3, the damage. Now, this may be a sniper round, and the velocity and penetration might be complete batshit, and that makes people think that for 1 credit less, you're just getting the same one-shot ability of the MG3 or M240B plus twice the ammo at base, but no, you empirically are not. The PKM might one-shot even light armor targets at intermediate ranges. However, at the distances you will find yourself using this, it will not be long until you realize that the one-shot feature is pretty much as consistent as the quality of the cosmetics that devs try to add to the game. The MG3 and M240 especially will nearly always one-shot a target, even to limbs, regardless of armor. The PKM struggles against heavy armor past 60 yards. They are not the same. One of any of these issues is at worst an annoyance, but they add up, and ultimately this gun sometimes just earns you a free ticket on the struggle bus. The fire rate is not fast like some of the others. It's only around 50 better than the 600 and AK would come in at, and pre-firing is difficult when entire bursts can just go over someone due to lack of volume. So I'm going to have to agree with Sacrilegious when he said, "Hey yo, this gun sucks, and if you use it, you're a stupid, no good pussy orphan who isn't loved by anyone." That's exactly what he said. He told me that. But like any cloud, the PK has some silver linings. And honestly, if you learn to compensate for the failings, you can start to profit. Number 1, it's a machine gun. No matter what the performance is, if video games teach you anything, it should be that having an ammo capacity in the triple digits is inherently a massive advantage. The PKM gets this by default, and each and every single one of them can still one-shot body any armor at point blank and beyond. Combine that with what's still a competent fire rate, and honestly, it's not that bad if you use it right. For instance, given some of its inherent traits, it's pretty easy to eliminate the situations where an enemy could win. I.e., if your trigger delay is going to get you killed when you peek, just turn the wall into Swiss cheese, and given the absurd penetration value, there's an overwhelmingly positive chance that anyone on the objective is now missing several intact vital organs or even limbs.
Hey yo, deadass G.
Like, the number of engagements you are capable of winning without even shooting directly at a non-solid space is wildly hilarious. Entire objectives can be cleared off and defended with well under 1 of the drums, and you can carry up to 3 with a heavy carrier, which is pretty well affordable given that number 2, it's cheap as shit. You are getting 100 bullets that one shot for 3 credits. There's also not a ton of attachments you need. Sure, a compensator is useful for firing with the bipod, but with practice it's really not necessarily. Surprisingly, I've done really well without it recently, and only opt for either the flashlight or even suppressor to reduce the always present tracers and just make it a bear to pin down my location. Sure, there's tons of optics, but the irons are perfectly functional, actually way more ideal than most other machine guns' absolute catastrophes masquerading as helpful features, so unless you're going long range, don't bother with a holographic, because scopes are the only thing you should be using alternative to the great iron sights. This basically makes it so you can easily afford a heavy carrier with armor and grenades out the ass, and genuinely regardless of any of those things, if you are practiced, anyone who is sprinting towards your line of sight is not going to have the time to react, trigger delay or not. The name of the game with the PKM is diversity, something you don't see with later machine guns and their higher price tags and reliance on capacity upgrades. With the price it comes in at being such a steal, you really can do whatever you want with your build. You can try to be aggressive and push, and even where you lose engagements, you're just going to be a menace to the enemy team, or you can sit back with a scope and absolutely dominate wave after wave of brainless bots who thought that they'd be able to go AFK on your objective and outpost. Strong and relentless, sturdy and with a striking design. I don't think that the PKM is great, especially not when with 0.4 of cons, which I didn't bring up yet. The M249 exists, which if you've used, you're aware of the certain feature which just makes it better than any of the machine guns. But I digress. I like the model it has, and I like the gun in real life, and it's fun as hell and easily my go-to for playing as an insurgent gunner in pleb modes like push that don't give you all the options. Next episode will be me explaining why the M249 is just the god tier weapon for this job, but until then, your ass can cope about it in the comments section. I'm Six Snipes, and this has been Gun Guide. I'll see you out there in Sandstorm.
Fuck you for shooting at me.